Hi, my name is Dylan Sullivan, and I did my capstone on structured learning environments. My competency statement is, I'm competent at fostering an emotionally safe and respectful learning environment for all students in order to ensure success both in and out of school. I had two main questions that I was focusing on while I was working on my capstone. They were, how can I extend the learning environment beyond the classroom? And how can I promote a safe learning environment for all students? For example, provide for their physical, emotional, and intellectual well-being. So my first piece of evidence, I did being trauma sensitive. In my math block, I had a student who told me that his parents were going through a divorce, and I obviously felt bad for him. I wanted to talk to him about it, but I didn't know what role that would play in him as a student. I just thought that he'll process those emotions as he wants. I just didn't know how to handle it. So it wasn't until my student teaching in Omaha at Conestoga Elementary in second grade. This area has a lot of gun violence, gang violence, very diverse. They have about 92% free or reduced lunch program. And so this is a student, it's an excerpt from my journal about a student who told me about what happened to her father when she was in kindergarten. So I'll just read you my excerpt. It says, "Today Anaya told me about her father being murdered 2 years ago. I walked over to her and heard her crying. I asked her what was wrong and she told me. I immediately told her to go behind my desk and get stickers and paper. She decided to create a little sticker heart that she said she was then going to go put out at her father's grave." So this really just turned around her day. I knew that whatever we were learning at that time wasn't important. What was important was getting her to process those emotions in a healthy way and figure her emotions out so she could then be successful in learning. My second piece of evidence is being culturally responsive. So I come from a town in Nebraska of about 800 people. So my idea of culture and diversity was your skin color. After taking the multicultural education class at UNL, it opened my eyes a little bit. I started to see it. Then it's like your religion, the community that you're in, stuff like that. So I noticed myself trying to work it into some lessons. This is an example. It's my literature block at West Lincoln Elementary School in a second grade classroom. The attempt was there. It wasn't great by any means, just missed it barely, but I read a book to them called A Landmark Street. This is an article about how this street in LA is so tied to their Hispanic roots and how they have Hispanic monuments. I tried, like I said, but I could have had the students talk about what's important to their cultures, really turn the spotlight on them instead of just on this book and what's being told in this book. It wasn't until my social studies methods block in the spring of 2017 that I really noticed a change in my thinking. Like I said before, I just saw diversity and culture as skin color, but this is where I really noticed. So in our social studies class, she would have us do a current events twice a week. So we would partner up and we'd bring current event and we would talk about it. So my partner and I decided to cover Cover Girls First, Cover Boy. This is really where I saw that it wasn't just skin color, it was their identity, how they wanted to dress, their gender identity, their sexual orientation, all of that stuff plays a role. And we as teachers, we talked about how we can handle that if kids are bullying them, or how to handle if a kid comes to you and says that, a boy comes to you and says he wants to wear makeup, instead of just snapping on him, really thinking about how that would make him feel. And so this is where it didn't become just skin color, it became all identities, it was skin color, race, religion, your community, literally everything about you is part of being culturally responsive. And my final piece of evidence, this is where I would say is my most recent growth and my greatest growth recently, is emotional wellness. So I always knew that relationships were important, but I didn't ever really think that it would affect their learning. I thought that as soon as they walked in the classroom, yeah, they were still feeling those emotions, but they could still learn that math lesson. But I quickly learned in Omaha that is not the case. I noticed in LPS I would always hear myself saying, "Can you be okay? Can you be okay?" Which I know that comes from a good place, but that's kind of just like pushing their emotions to the side, saying can you just put your emotions to the side and focus on the math lesson that I'm teaching right now, instead of really getting down to the root of the problem and saying, why are you feeling mad? Why are you feeling sad? What can we do to work through that together? So in my student teaching at Conestoga, I did emoji jars. So every day they would come in and they would self-regulate their emotions, self-identify what they're feeling that day, and either put their stick in "I am struggling today," "Today is a good day," or "Today is awesome." So if they would put their stick into "I am struggling today," I would check in with them within 5 minutes of bell work and talk to them. What are they feeling? Why are they feeling it? And how can we be as successful as we can today? What can we do to work together? And I really got this idea from this book called Fostering Resilient Learners. My school support liaison in Omaha had us read this, and it really just gives you strategies for creating a classroom where emotions and trauma is taken into account. So like I said, this really has kids self-identify their emotions, self-regulate themselves, and I really noticed this paying off when I sent a student to the buddy room because he just wasn't working in the classroom. It wasn't working, he was being disrespectful, gave him multiple chances. So I sent him to the buddy room, and without me asking or the buddy room teacher asking, he wrote me a note. He said, "Dear Mr. Sullivan, sorry for being disrespectful by Marquise." So I was really proud of him for identifying that emotion that he felt. We then talked about, like, why did you feel that emotion? Was it healthy? Like, the way you handled it, was that okay? And how can you handle it next time? That really made me happy. I could see that this was paying off. And then my last artifact would be the cozy corner. So this is kind of a step before the safe seat. So if students feel themselves getting mad, sad, just feeling strong feelings, they can move themselves to the cozy corner. There are soothers, there are blocks, and there's a 5-minute timer, so they get to sit there for 5 minutes. The goal of this is to really keep students in the classroom and stop them before they get into that crisis mode where they need the safe seat that has a negative connotation, whether you want it to or not. Before they need the buddy room, office, restoration station. So this is just an area where they can go focus on their breathing, focus on their emotions, and get back into the classroom with us. A time that I really saw this paying off was with one of my students. He had lots of anger problems. He, at the beginning of the school year, would throw desks, throw chairs, curse me out. I really noticed this paying off for him once we implemented it, because he would go back there and I would hear him doing deep breathing techniques, and he would be playing with the blocks, and he would come back and he'd be ready to learn. Now it's progressed to where he doesn't even need the cozy corner. He just sits at his desk and he breathes and he gets over it and he is ready to move on. And then we talk about, what was that emotion? Why did you feel that way? So this is also working. It makes them be self-identify what they're feeling and how to work through it in more healthy ways. So how will I apply my learnings? This is important because I want to teach my kids to be successful in life. That means not just academics, but life skills as well, such as processing your emotions, treating other people with respect. So I will be moving to New York City and teaching in Brooklyn, and I will obviously run into students that have extreme trauma that I can't even imagine, being culturally responsive, and I will have no other option but to focus on emotional wellness. Like, these 3 things that I talked about today, I won't have an option other than to implement them in my future. So the learning that I learned here at UNL really, really will help me in my future.